morning, all. Welcome to this circle. Welcome to the gathering of Southminster Steinhauer United Church, spiritual seekers, all united in community. And we welcome you in this space. We welcome you online, wherever you happen to be this morning. This is a place and a circle, as always, that is for anyone and everyone. We often say it, and it's worth saying every time, that we invite, we welcome, and we are a community for all people, all sizes, all ages, all colors, all genders, all sexualities, all abilities, all religions or none or many, all people. And may we find, all of us, a welcome and a safer place here among us this morning. So we come to this morning as we are, and we're welcome just that way. And so wherever you're coming from, whatever your morning's been like, wherever you happen to be, and whatever time you happen to be watching this, if it's by video later on when you're wide awake, we won't judge. We're all welcome. We do light this candle. Some of the candles were lit. We light this candle, though, our candle of community. And we recognize that we let its light be for us a flame, a beacon, to remind us of our connection with each other and with all people and with all life. And we take that seriously, so that when we go from this place, we know that when we look in someone's eyes and we can see them for who they are, we know that it is daytime. We know that we are one. We are going to sing our way into community this morning with a song that's perfect for any morning, really, a song of gratitude. And so let's sing our gratitude for this day, for whatever we have found or may find within it.
This day, this hour, this moment of time, these sights, these sounds, these signs of our life, my breath, my thought, my blood in my veins. With heart I speak gratitude for all, for gratitude each day, speaking gratitude this place on the earth, in the stars inspire gratitude. This day, this hour, this moment of time, these sights, these sounds, these signs of our life, my breath, my thought, my blood in my veins. With heart I speak gratitude for all, for gratitude each day, speaking gratitude this place on the earth, in the stars inspire gratitude.
So we recognize, as always, that we are grateful recipients of land that we dwell. Treaty 6 land, we recognize the long history, the spirituality, the fact that this was home and traveling route for so many Indigenous and Métis. And so we give thanks for this land, and it is a continued expression of our gratitude to live in truth, in reconciliation, in continued relationship with all the people and creatures of this land. I want to reintroduce us to a longtime friend of this congregation and many congregations. Stanley Salopree is that friend, and he joins us this morning to offer us a song, a prayer, maybe a couple of songs. Stanley is a respected member and elder of the Dene First Nation, and we invite him forward to offer a prayer this morning with our gratitude. And as is custom, Stanley, we offer you tobacco with gratitude for what you will offer to us today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stanley Salopree. I come from Meander River, Alberta. High level is about 8 hours drive north, and a little reserve called Meander Rivers, which is 42 miles north. Right on the Mackenzie Highway going NWT. I am a Dene descendant. I am a Dene Elder First Nation. Our people had always, in the past up to now, how we pray. And we use drum. We use drum to pray. This is made out of moose hide. And we use a tobacco for just let me repeat those things, what I've just said, in case some of you haven't heard me. Anyhow, good morning. My name is Stanley Salopree. I come from Meander River, Alberta. It's north of High Level. High Level is the last main town before you hit Northwest Territories. And as a Dene people, we're Athabascan dialect, which is our language. And Dene people are the vast population in northern Alberta to spreads right into Northwest Territories. And first of all, I would like to touch base on our spirituality as a Dene people. As Dene people, with the way we pray is by using a drum, which I just shown you. And we use tobacco for ceremony, and we use some of the moose grease that we use for the land. The reason behind it is when we use this moose grease for ceremonies along with tobacco that combining, is for we pray for a harvest, for a good harvest, so the food is abundant, so the tribe won't go hungry. And we use that tobacco to send message to our Creator, the Grandfather, we call it God, and we call it Great Spirit. And in the past, when I was growing up, my late father was more or less a spiritual leader. He always told us that there's 4 different type of people, 4 different type of people on this earth. The red, which is us, the white, which is in here, and the black people, and the yellow, which is the Asians. And for each group of these nations, they have their own way of praying. By doing so, by the end of the day, we always pray to one God, which is the Great Spirit, or we call it. He always told us that in the future, as you're growing up, you're going to see these things. But at that time, I was just a little guy. I didn't really understand what he was talking about. I looked around the reserve. I thought there was only us, First Nations. But it's as I was growing up, I was doing more of my adventure and leaving the reserve for education and for work. Then I realized what my father had taught me was right. There was other people besides us First Nations. So he told us that these people have their own way of praying, but you have to remember, you have to respect them, respect their beliefs, respect their prayers. And I still maintain those traditional teachings today. It's all based on spirituality, the Dene spirituality. And I'd like to share a prayer in Dene. And I'm going to sing 2 songs, one prayer song and one dance song. And just before closing, I'm going to do a little touch base on truth and reconciliation, what I've observed and what I've witnessed last month in July 2022 during the papal visit. So I'm going to do a quick prayer here in Dene. Etsi, dahatsanandi, dahatsanigowa, dahandi, dahazi, dahatsito, dahandachine, ikuwan dahatsanandi. Dahatsanigowa, kulogutihe, dindahechu, kendo. Those are the Hikegundeha. Tindeke Tintana and they tea. Echunande, Echutana, Kadonti. The Hagedite, the Haju, the Guidi, Hikegunte, Eketiju. Selon the Hatsodundi at sea. In the Hatsanigo and Hatsan and in the Hazina and Dida. Masicho. in the Hudson and the in the Hudson and the Hudson and the Golodutsan hay Konizun the Han wa hai Nahandi and the Hazid and the Hudson and the Masi. That first song was our prayer song as a Dene people. Before gatherings, before big assemblies, big events, we always hold ceremony. And that's our number one protocol. The reason behind it is we ask the Creator. Number one is harvesting, as I mentioned before, so that we'll have abundant of food when we gather, when we start harvesting from the land. And number two is we ask the Creator to protect us from sickness, so the tribe will stay strong throughout the seasons. And we ask for protection for the children. And we ask for protection for the women, who is the most important, because they take care of our house, our homes. They take care of the community. And we always ask for healing when we drum. When we drum, we're healing. When we're dancing, we're healing. We pray in our mind, we pray in our heart. We always acknowledge the Creator, which is God. Everything we do. When we go hunting, we say a prayer. When we kill a moose, we put tobacco on the Mother Earth. We thank the Creator for giving us that moose so we can feed our family and our community. We put tobacco on the fire so that smoke will send message to God, the Creator. And this is how the Dene spiritual practices have always been. I've always watched my father doing these things. And after he passed on, my uncle, they took over that role, and after they're gone, it's up to us as the generations. And we pass it on to the younger people, how to use drum, how to we teach them those prayer songs. We teach them those drum dances songs. Anyhow, last month in July, during the papal visit, my wife and I, we did 2 days of volunteer at Lac Saint-Anne. Lac Saint-Anne is about 45 minutes drive west of Edmonton. I've witnessed really good results, I should say, just for that time being. I observe emotions. I observe grievances. I observe happiness. But overall, it's mostly happiness. I am not a former residential school. I went to day school. So I was very fortunate to be exposed to my language, my cultural practices, the traditional knowledge, which I maintain today. However, my late mother, it's sad to say, she passed away 5 years ago. She was 88 years old. She was a former residential school. And it wasn't very good being raised by a mother like that. Her discipline was out of ordinary. It was very harsh. It's more or less like a military discipline. But today I'm thankful. I am thankful to my mother because she taught us that education was very important. She pushed us through schools. But for the longest period in my life, as an adolescent and into teenage years, I had that hatred for my mother. 27 years ago, I sobered up. I stopped using alcohol. About 12 years ago, I made amendments with my mother. And I'm glad I did. Anyhow, going back to Lac Saint-Anne, the papal visit, I've talked to, as a Dene person, I speak my language, and I met a lot of Dene people. A lot of them, they were relieved that the Pope came to this land and apologized. They were very happy. They were relieved. One 80 years old and his wife must be about, I'm guessing about 75 years old. They had tears when they were talking to me. They were telling me, I'm free. I'm finally free, they told me. And I listened, and I was wondering what they were saying. I wonder what the reason behind that. And they kept talking. And you know what they told me? I'm very happy, we're very happy that the Holy Father came to this land and apologized to me and my wife and the rest of the people. And I'd say about 70% was very, very good. I've heard really good stories. Of course, I managed to talk to a lot of people because I was helping with cultural and mental support people. So my role was just to go out and listen to people, and not don't give them a little pause feedback or anything, but just listen to what they're going through. But majority of them has gone through that psychological trauma, which they held on to until that day the apology took place. I felt pretty sad for them. I was thinking we all need to be on the same page. Start healing our healing journey. Start forgiving. Start forgiving the government, the church. Because it's not the same people that are running those things today. The institution, the residential school is being shut down. The government people are no longer there. There's different people. So we've got to hope for the best. Myself, I started my healing journey quite a while ago after I sobered up. And I always encourage my people back home. We need to forgive people that had hurt us in the past. Don't hold on to it. We carry those things around. It's going to make us sick. We're going to live a very bitter life. We're not going to live a very happy life. So that truth and reconciliation, it's a pretty strong word. But it's not as strong as what we think if we pray. We keep that God's prayer in our hearts and minds every day. We have to be thankful every day for what's given to us, for another brand new day. We're thankful that our neighbors are still there. We survived through that COVID, 2 years of miserable, 2 years of sickness. We lost a lot of people back home. Everybody's going through that grief and loss. And like I said, we pray every day. Every day, we thank the Creator. Give us that strong support through prayers. And that healing journey is possible. So I thank you very much for listening to me and enjoy your day. Masicho. Masicho means thank you very much. Masi means thank you.
Thank you. Your presence and your friendship, Stanley. Thank you. I want to transition into a story now. It's a story entitled Petra by Mariana Coppo. It's about a stone, it's about a rock. And I want us to hear this story today as a parable. I want us to think of the phases and stages of our lives, the different times when we've seen ourselves in different ways, perhaps in different roles, perhaps doing different things at different times in our lives, and perhaps the openness that transitioning through different stages and phases requires of us. This is Petra. Nothing can move me. Not the wind, not time. I don't go anywhere. Everyone comes to me. I am strong. I'm a fearsome, fearless, mighty, magnificent mountain. Hmm. 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 Is that a pebble? Woof. Me? A pebble? No way. I'm an egg. A smooth and shiny egg. I'm not an ordinary egg. I am an egg of the world, in a world of possibility. Will I breathe fire? Will I wear a tuxedo? Well, whatever I become, I'm bound to be amazing. There's no room for rocks in my nest. Oh no, not again. This is becoming a pattern. Well, they say no egg is an island. But what an amazing island I am. What paradise, what palm trees, what peace, what sunshine, what a cool rock. Not bad at all. What will I be tomorrow? Who knows? Well, no need to worry. I'm a rock, and this is how I roll. Rocks, all of us. Different things at different times, open, hopefully, to whatever's next. There's an immersive exhibit on right now with the art of Claude Monet. It's happening in Edmonton at the moment. Has anyone in this room seen it? 1, 2, 3. It's reminded me of how much I've always appreciated Claude Monet's painting, and it's a big room at the Expo Center, and it's got these massive screens all around the room, and projectors that project his art. Sometimes whole pieces, whole canvases of his work, sometimes just a part of them, or different parts scattered around the room. Anyways, they call it immersive, and it really feels truly immersive, like you're in this painting or this world that he's created in some way. And meanwhile, there's lovely period-appropriate music playing, and it's quite a lovely experience. And it reminded me of my experience with art, and obviously with painting, as any trip to a museum or an exhibit will do. And it reminded me of this poem, and I want to read a part of it to you now. It's by Liesl Müller. It's about Claude Monet. It's called Monet Refuses the Operation. Just before I start, it's self-explanatory, but it's written in the voice of the artist. So it's written as if it's Claude Monet speaking. And if you know anything of Claude Monet's art, it's not realism, really, but it is real objects in a particular style, a very... well, I'm not an art person. I can't describe what it is, but it's indistinct. It is as if looking at it through fuzzy eyes a little bit. And so here is a part of Liesl Müller's poem, Monet Refuses the Operation. Doctor, you say there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris? And what I see is an aberration caused by old age? An affliction? I tell you, it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels. To soften and blur and finally banish the edges you regret that I don't see. To learn that the line I called the horizon does not exist, and sky and water so long apart are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun. And now you want to restore my youthful errors? Fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, wisteria separate from the bridge that it covers? What can I say to convince you that the Houses of Parliament dissolve night after night to become the fluid dream of the Thames? I will not return to a universe of objects that don't know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms, and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world, blue vapor without end. In this poem, I think Müller's eloquently criticizing the doctors, and more than the doctors, the world's view that criticizes him for his lack of imagination. He wishes that his doctor might have something of the gift that's taken him a lifetime to acquire. And it does take a lifetime, don't you think, to see deeper than the surface? or to see clearly about what is true and valuable in life, to see something the way only you could see it? Could you have seen things the same way when you were 12, when you were 21, when you were 45, yesterday? One might say it's a lifelong spiritual endeavor to see beyond the photograph-like view of the world, that everything is exactly as we first perceive it. One could say that it takes practice to see beyond the superficial. And because this series is entitled Nerd Wisdom, I am going to get a little nerdy. In any great sci-fi movie, in any great comic book, or the hero's origin story, the world that is presented at the start is never really the reality of the world as things unfold. In any great sci-fi movie or comic book, the world isn't quite what the people dwelling in it thought it was. And those are spiritual and personal questions. How do you know you're seeing things the way they really are? How do we know if we're seeing clarity, and what does clarity look like? The way you and only you perceive it? As if you were immersed in it, or what about if you stood back from it? With optimistic lenses or pessimistic or realistic? Which ones do you have on? With time to know yourself and your world well enough to understand what you're seeing? Back to Monet for a minute. The last triptych of Monet's paintings of water lilies on his pond at Giverny were painted near the end of his life. And he was going blind. And many critics found these paintings to be so obscure and poorly executed because his eyesight was failing. It's the one on the right. The reviews reflected a view of the world kin to that of Monet's doctor in Müller's poem. It should be a certain way. You must be failing. And compare that to the paintings of the same water lilies 25 years earlier. The earlier ones are more naturalistic in style, whereas the later ones, dense swirls, loose strokes of color that almost obscure the bridge completely. But it's there. This is a quote from Claude Monet. He said, "The aim of my large water lilies paintings was to supply the illusion of an endless whole of water without horizon or bank. The gift of sight was with Claude Monet, even as his eyes were failing him. He began to see beyond what his eyeballs and his optic nerve told his brain, and he began to paint what meaning and truth and beauty was possible for him to see. Is that any less real?" From art to science, if we may. There's some nerdy wisdom to be had in both worlds, you know. The James Webb Space Telescope is NASA's largest and most powerful space science telescope, and it launched not that long ago, Christmas Day 2021, and has just recently, as you may have heard, sent its first pictures back to Earth. And if you, like me, you've been amazed at some of the crystal clear images being released. This is the most famous. This is the first one that was released. It's called the Deep Field, and it's pointing at a very particular place. That was released just about a month ago, second week of July. It shows stars and galaxies clearer than they've ever been seen before, clearer than we can show on these walls right here, obviously, but clearer than ever before. And we're seeing stars that are older than we've ever seen before, which means they're farther. They're not as bright. But with this telescope, we can see them. And when we look at distant galaxies with telescopes, this is where I must tell you, my mind gets blown every time. Even though I might know this information, every time my mind is blown by this. I nerd out on this. When we look at distant galaxies with telescopes, we're looking at the light that has taken millions or billions of years to get to the telescope. I might understand that, but it's still, isn't that amazing? That these images that are just returning to us from this telescope are millions and billions of years getting to us. That light is so old. This shot is capturing the cluster of galaxies as it was 4.6 billion years ago. That's slightly older than the sun and the Earth, which only formed 4.56 billion years ago. So these stars are, what we're seeing now is from before the Earth and the sun were formed. Again, mind-blowing. The most profound and awesome truth about looking at the stars is that we are looking into the past. And they say time travel doesn't exist. NASA has been placing what previously were amazing photos in their own right from the Hubble telescope next to the new ones from Webb, and seeing the difference in clarity and resolution, the ability to see and examine in much more detail. This is the same galaxy cluster from Hubble on the left and from Webb on the right. And scientists themselves are just amazed at the detail and what new discoveries there are to see. And in the last few weeks, galaxies far beyond what can be seen in the first photo have gained attention. Webb has detected a number of galaxies that could be so distant that their light has taken, get this, 13.5 billion years to reach us. Now, the universe itself is only 13.8 billion years old, they think. So we could be seeing galaxies as they were just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. And what will this teach us? We have no idea. And all of this after only a few weeks. Now, some scientists are reminding the world that we don't know anything yet for certain. And isn't that the perfect thing that a scientist would say? Now, wait a minute. Do we know for sure? Has this been confirmed? The measurement techniques like the redshift calculations they use to measure the distance and determine the age of a star or galaxy, they need to be verified, and et cetera, and et cetera. Are they as far as we think? Is that 13.5 billion really as far as it really is? Is what we're seeing true? And that is always the question. In science, in life, is what we're seeing true? And so even with clarity, there is still wondering. It might be clearer, but do we know what it means? Do we know what's in there? Not yet. What wasn't clear before is clear now, but yet may get clearer still. This is the journey of Petra the rock as well, isn't it? I just threw this little cartoon in because I thought it was a great little fun break to take. I am not blind, I've just seen enough. I think that comic maybe should appear in the next protest march that any of us walk in. I want to talk for a minute about reading the Bible. Oh, not to give you whiplash about all the things we're talking about here today, but reading the texts of the Bible is kind of similar to this whole telescope business. It's a little bit like being confronted with a new image. What in it is worth exploring? Well, we have to look and see. There's some stuff that's exciting, there's some stuff that's pretty ordinary, and all of it needs some kind of interpretation and analysis to fully understand, all of which takes some hard work. And so, to walk the line where we open ourselves to the wisdom of our faith tradition and think that there might be value in this ancient tradition, in these ancient stories, without making assumptions, interpreting it responsibly with the tools of textual, historical, literary criticism, it's all very hard and sometimes overwhelming. You think, well, maybe I'll just shut this book and leave it alone. And we do the hard work not because we must make these words mean something that they don't, but because we need to wade through. These are old words, and just like a new image takes some interpretation, old words and traditions require some work too. We have to wade through the millennia of bloat and spurious meaning that church and faith and tradition have placed upon the words we're reading. We have to cut through all of that in order that we might find, well, something close to what was the intention of these words and what's the spiritual value of a piece of wisdom for the original community. And if not that, then the evolution of what it might mean to us with 21st century ears. This is our task, the act of discovery of something old, ancient, not quite 13 billion years, but a couple thousand anyway. It's tiring but exciting work, and it's all the harder with what we might call the miracle stories. Maybe there's just a whole lot of stuff piled on them, but I want to read you one of them, if I may. This comes from the 5th chapter of Luke. You might recognize this story. Once, while Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear him, he saw 2 boats there at the shore, and the fishermen had gone out on them and were washing their nets. Jesus himself got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little way from the shore. And then he sat and he taught the crowds from the boat. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Now put out..." I lost my place. Yes, "put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, though, "Master, we have worked all night and have caught nothing. But if you say so, I will let down the nets." And when they had done this, they caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to break. So they signaled to their partners in the other boats to come and help them, and they came and they filled both boats until they began to sink. That's the story. It's kind of a simple story, really, isn't it? I mean, a couple guys are out fishing. They've been fishing waters all night, caught nothing. Perhaps that's a first clue to this being a wisdom story, not something to look at like Monet's art critics. Professional fishermen spending all night without catching anything and still at it, that might be the first clue that we're dealing with one of those stories that never happened and is always happening. Jesus used their boats to do a little teaching. Now, if we know anything, he probably told a few stories. He probably told a parable or two, a pithy saying maybe, some instructions to the crowd about living in the times that they were living in. We don't know what he taught exactly, but that's, he taught probably what he often taught. And after this, Jesus suggests that they put their nets down once again and, let's humor the teacher. They say, okay, fine, we'll do it. And we know what happened. They have so many fish, their boats begin to sink and their nets break. Now, it's been a temptation through Christian history to take these miracle stories, this one, the loaves, the fishes, the feeding of the 5,000, the walking on the water, the turning water into wine, you name it, and try to explain the miracle to make it more, palatable, believable, to somehow rationalize it, to say, how could this have happened? What were they seeing? They must have moved to a better fishing spot. Well, okay. The wine that just came out of nowhere from water, well, it must have been in the back room all along, right? The people must have added to the 5 loaves on their own. They must have had things stashed in their bags. But I tell you, whenever we start to rationalize and try to explain a miracle story, we're barking up the wrong tree. It's the wrong way to go, because that's not what these stories are about. These aren't stories to understand and explain. The how doesn't matter. If we are tripped up in the details of finding out how a miracle might have worked, we're missing the point. The point, again, is that these are myth-like stories, right? They never happened, and they're always happening. They have meaning lying just below the surface under the plot of these stories. So the goal of anyone hearing these stories isn't to explain them, but rather to treat them like we do a work of science fiction or a fairy tale or a mythical story, as methods to get to the question, so what? To get to the symbolic meaning, the moral, the spiritual value that dwells there. And in this case, I find it really interesting that it's after they've heard some stories and teachings from their teacher, probably doing precisely what we're talking about, opening their minds to new ways of seeing the universe or their world or their situations, object lessons about some facet of their thinking, calling into question some age-old tradition or some unexamined belief or cultural norm. It's only after that has happened that they suddenly experience all kinds of fish where before there were none. Nothing to do with the fishing conditions, and everything to do with the fact that the change in perspective, any change in perspective, changes what you see, what you learn, what you harvest, what you reap, what you sow. The truth is, one of the goals of the spiritual life and all the question it raises is to help us see differently, to help us experience differently than without it. Otherwise, why would we be here? We want to experience life in the best way possible. We want shifts to our perspectives. And it's not possible to get anything different out of life without being open to the shift in perspective, to being taught something, to seeing something new, to thinking about something in a different way. And I'm willing to think that that's what happened on those boats. Not literally, of course, but somehow the catch of their lives changed because new perspective was had. They suddenly saw with new eyes the catch they'd been waiting for. There's a whole segment of theology that is relatively new, not brand new, but I'd say within the last 20, 30 years, called queer theology. And the queer theological reading of this wisdom would be that nobody can tell you what kind of world you live in or who you are, except you. Your experience isn't defined by what others tell you it should be. So whether it's fish or whether it's impressionistic art or whether it's what we see through a telescope, we're learning that your experience isn't defined by what others tell you it should be. It's discovered through challenge, through questioning, through dark nights sometimes, through self-doubt at other times. Places not many of us wish to go, but places where all of us need to go. It's through all of this that we discover who we are and see the world with a clearer perspective, with new eyes. It's through the challenge, it's through the questions, it's through the confusion, and it's despite anyone who tells you what you see isn't there or who you are doesn't matter or this isn't possible. Whatever our path, the spiritual life shares something with the science geek in all of us. They're both a journey into seeing clearly. It doesn't require 20/20 vision. It doesn't depend on the perfection or imperfection of our eyes. We're seeking truth. That truth changes as soon as we learn more. So when someone whispered, but what is truth, when I spoke about that a few minutes ago, truth is what it is right now until we learn more. Whether with a billion-dollar telescope or an artist's sensibility, we all just want to see a little more clearly. So whether it's today, this afternoon on a walk, or whether you're getting together with coffee with a friend, no matter what it is, may we work and live to see with our hearts, to seek truth wherever it may be, and be open to the fact that 1 minute later the truth might change. May it be so for all of us in so many ways.
Wonder meets our living, and questions guide our way. Wondering what wisdom this love and just held peace. We want the world's diverse and fragile splendor, wondering what the role would be. When wonder meets our living, just help us through the day. The reverence of our living holds a wonder, of kindness, love, and just held peace. We hold the world's diverse and fragile splendor, wondering what our role will be. When wonder meets our living, when questions guide our way, when pondering what wisdom will be helped through the day. The reverence of our living holds a wonder, kindness, love, and just held peace. We hold the world's diverse and fragile splendor, wondering what our role will be.
Another 2 weeks, we'll have that one. Sharing some invitations with you today. We are, of course, grateful for any support that you give to SSUC and the way that it helps us do all the things that we want to do through our outreach efforts, through our community building, and through the use of our space and the way we can offer that to the community. If you'd like to donate today, there's a box in the back of the room. You can always donate online or by sending checks to the church mailing address, or by purchasing grocery cards, which support the church in a small way with a percentage of whatever you buy coming back to the church. And David is here this morning selling those cards. So thank you for all the support that you give to the community. I want to talk about this backpack appeal that we started just over a week ago, and I want to thank everyone who has donated either backpacks or money to the cause. So far, so great. We have enough funds to buy school supplies and backpacks, I think, for about 30 backpack kits. And for those of you who donated backpacks or funds, it's really fantastic. Thank you. It's not too late. You can still donate today. Though if it's a backpack, I'm giving you 45 more minutes, because we will gather just around noon to fill those backpacks and get them ready to send to Bissell so that they can distribute that to those to families who need them the most. So thank you all. Heard from a few of you who are willing to help us strategize around some fundraising ideas for the coming year. This is an invitation. Nothing's been planned yet, but we're thinking maybe an August meeting and a September meeting. So a really short-term commitment, maybe two meetings, either in person or online, your choice, to just help us think through some of our fundraising efforts for the coming year. Some old ones that may need new leadership or may need to retire, some new ideas that may come forward, maybe new strategies and whole new methods of how we fundraise as a community. These are all on the table, of course, and we just want to come and together, a small group of us, and have a chat about that and give some energy to some fundraising strategies that will help us through the year. So if that's something that appeals to you, please do let us know. Again, a thank you to Stanley Salopree this morning, who brought us your wisdom and your story, and we appreciate it every time you're here, and always appreciate your drumming and your songs and your prayers. Thank you, Stanley. Might we join our voices together to strengthen our intentions for the path ahead for each of us as we share these words inspired by Greta Vosper and either spoken silently or aloud to remain in your hearts or to take with you in whatever ways you need today. Let us share these words with each other. Life is filled with deep mysteries, and although we come together to understand them and ourselves more fully, it is beyond these walls, in the common things of the everyday, that we most regularly meet them. Starlight, wind, heat waves off the pavement, music in the silence of a smile. Let's open ourselves to wisdom and mystery, but let's never confine it to this time and space. May we delve into it here, but find it everywhere. May we see the blessing and challenges in the lives of those around us, and may we learn to embrace life's sacred chaos. Into such mystery we live our days. And so we go, with eyes of wonder and mystery, and seeking the light wherever we might go, whether it be the wisdom of a word, the care of a smile, the heartbeat of a friend. May we go in the light that we create.